Look, I can't help but think that now might be a good time for a little fire and ice. Please
do not know. There's never a good time for fire and ice.
What happens when you mix fire and ice?
Warm water, baby.
It's bubbling, baby. Warm water. Warm water.
Mike Tipton, Brandon, the Iceman Cone, coming at you live as we are over here at Union Drafthouse 730 Sunland Park Drive near the shops of Solana. They've got some sort of thing going on at the shops of Solana. I can't remember what it is. Maybe you can help me out with it. Oh, yeah, the farmer's market that they've got going on at the shops of Solana. So we might go check that out a little bit later. Who knows? Brandon, the Iceman Cone, we got David hanging out with us as well. Of course, over here at Union Drafthouse, it's Saturday, so that means we got the bottomless wings starting at $15.99. Then each round after that,
free. And we put them away last week.
Yeah, we put in the work last week. We 100%
put
in the work on that. Yeah, I think we tried, 5 or 6 different flavors,
and then
maybe 8.
You start getting spicier, and then I start, throwing in the towel at that point.
Brandon, the Iceman Cone, taps out with some spice.
Just a little bit.
On top of that, it's also the $4 Cider-Day. They got the ciders going on for $4, the $4 seltzers as well, as long as they're in the cans. And, of course, they got the $4 Ornitos, so come on out here, check them out. They're also going to have the live UFC events tonight as well. Brandon probably knows a little bit more about that. It's UFC 297.
297, yeah, big card tonight, always exciting. It's gonna be phenomenal. So definitely gonna be packed here tonight for that big event.
A lot of stuff has happened over the week. Some surprising stuff, some not so surprising stuff. The Dallas Cowboys lost on Sunday. That was something that Brandon and I were kind of heartbroken about. I could just imagine Davers hanging out in the corner, laughing at our pain, drinking our tears. And then the next day, the Philadelphia Eagles, which to me, I put it out on Twitter, that has to be one of the biggest collapses that we've seen. Somebody challenged that by saying that the Arizona Cardinals one year started 7-0 and then missed the playoffs.
Sure.
The one thing that I would say about that as a rebuttal is we're talking about a defending NFC champion that was in the Super Bowl last year and had a legitimate shot to win the Super Bowl. Everyone always says one play is what dictated that Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. We're talking about that team that brought everybody back minus a couple of coordinators, and now we're seeing the importance of coaching.
Yep.
That Philadelphia Eagles team just shitting the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And even as me, as someone, the most hardened Dallas Cowboys fan that just flat out hates the Philadelphia Eagles, there's a part of me that feels bad for them, man, because that's on such a big stage that everyone is seeing just this collapse over 7 weeks of how this team could not win. And the only win that they got within those 7 weeks was against the Giants, and that's a shithole team.
It is. And I can never honestly say I feel bad for the Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, I just don't have it in my heart to say that. But, yes, that was definitely one of the most monumental collapses in NFL history, especially considering that they looked like they were the team through 11 weeks and that only one loss that they had sustained. It literally looked like it was virtually impossible. I think at one point they had like a 90-something% chance to win their division, and then they end up somehow squandering that away and then completely goofing in the postseason and not really even looking that good. And the worst part is that, yes, I don't disagree with you in the respect that coaching means everything. And that's what people need to remember time and time again. No matter how great your team is, sometimes even if you have the ponies, if you don't have that coaching staff in place that knows how to make those adjustments and knows how to win those games, you're as good as screwed. They lost their offensive coordinator. That hurt. And that's ultimately, to me, one of the biggest things that affected their season this year. But yeah, with all the talent, they really disappointed.
Well, not just the offensive coordinator, right? Like the offense, to me, it mirrors a lot of what Dallas had going on too. Like where the offense in Philadelphia was good, we knew that offense was going to be limited, right? Jalen Hurts, I don't want to say he's a one-trick pony, but maybe he's a 1.5-trick pony, right? But like there's
one and a quarter.
There's not a whole lot there that we can say that we feel comfortable with this guy. But the ability to run the ball that he has makes it such a dynamic quarterback. The biggest issue to me was on the defensive side, where you lost the defensive coordinator. He goes over in Jonathan Gannon to be the coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And then you saw the turmoil that team had, that Philadelphia had on defense, which was you have one guy calling plays, and then halfway through the middle of the season, you give it the play calling to Matt Patricia, who was one of the worst coaches in Detroit Lions history. You know what it takes to be one of the worst coaches in Detroit Lions history? That tormented fan base of Detroit, right?
Sure.
So in order for Matt Patricia to be considered the worst coach in that team's history, and then he's the guy calling the plays on defense, right? I look at this Philadelphia Eagles team, and it seems like they – and I hate saying this because I think it's thrown out there all the time, but it really feels like that team quit on Nick Sirianni.
I don't really know that I would agree with that, just in the respect that I don't think you should quit on anybody, especially when you have a solid squad, and especially how you came close last year and led at halftime by 10 points and went on to lose the Super Bowl. I mean, I don't believe they quit on him. Maybe they were not as motivated. Maybe he didn't do a good job down the stretch. I mean, there's a lot of what ifs in this particular situation, but to say that they quit on him, I just think that, look, when you get cold, you get cold. And unfortunately for them, it was like anything that could have happened did happen down the stretch for them, and it was a completely different second half team than what we saw through 11 weeks, and that was really astonishing in my opinion.
I mean, I feel like there has to be so much more there because every team deals with injuries, right? Yep. The way that they lost unceremoniously against Tampa Bay, I can say, yeah, Jalen Hurts with the broken finger, and if you saw that finger, it was pretty damn disgusting. And me saying something was gross where I don't ever want to see it again, it has to be pretty damn bad. So seeing the way that finger was just, mangled up on his throwing hand going into the playoff game, that's why I could say a lot of those passes, didn't have the zip on them that we're used to seeing from a guy like Jalen Hurts. The one thing that I want to say, though, before we get into the Dallas Cowboys, I don't want to take away from like how amazing of a story Baker Mayfield has been this year.
Absolutely.
Right?
Wonderful.
Like, he was written off. Cleveland said they didn't want him. They got rid of him in favor of Deshaun Watson. How's that treating him, right? Then he goes over to Carolina. Carolina doesn't want him. Trade him in the middle of the season for absolutely nothing to go over to St. Louis or
LA.
to LA with the Rams. Wow, I went old school.
That's all right. It happens.
And then with the Rams, he wins a game, but then does nothing miraculous after that, right?
Yeah.
Then leads this team to the playoffs, and now a game away facing Detroit to go to the division, to go to the NFC Championship. It's just a great story with Baker Mayfield, and there's a lot of talent on that team. That game being 32-9 could have easily been 49-9.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that sometimes you just need to get into that right system, and he's been proven in the past that he is a solid quarterback. He's a quarterback that can get it done, and I don't think he was appreciated without a doubt in some of these other places. This particularly seems like a good situation for him. I think he's being well coached. I feel that they have a strong enough defense to make some moves. They have that offense where you give him an abundance of weapons. And I mean, look, again, a quarterback is only as good as his offensive line and as good as some of the weapons he has around him. Then if you throw in a good coaching staff and the guy actually has talent, you're going to see what a dude like Mayfield can end up accomplishing. And look, big win over Philly. Do they have a chance at Detroit? Absolutely. I mean, Detroit, good win for them last week, a 1-point victory to finally win a playoff for the first time in 30-plus years. But you know what? That's going to be a heck of a game. I'm excited for that particular contest.
I'm actually really excited for that game as well. We'll talk more about that as we move on further along in the show. But, of course, going back with the Philadelphia Eagles, the collapse that we saw from that team, another team that we saw collapse, our Dallas Cowboys, right?
Yeah.
Now, this team has all the talent.
Yes.
You look at them on paper, they're a Super Bowl contending champion-type team because they have so many all-stars and Pro Bowlers and, NFL first-team guys on their roster. And then they go into home. Not even on the road. They go home to AT&T Stadium and get absolutely blown out 46-32.
Yep.
And that game wasn't even that close.
No.
Because
not at all.
Green Bay's had all their starters in the second half. That's the thing that everyone needs to realize. Dallas got all them points in the second half.
Yeah, their last quarter particularly.
And all of us could have thought, Brandon, every single one of us could have thought as that game is going on, as we're seeing what's happening in the first quarter, first thing that came into my mind is, man, maybe Dan Quinn isn't going to be the hot defensive head coach that people think he's going to be.
Yeah.
And the next thing that came through my mind was Mike McCarthy's got to be gone.
Right.
Fast forward to Wednesday, and we get Mike McCarthy ain't going anywhere from Jerry Jones.
Yeah.
I sent you a text. You said in a lot of words, basically, that you were not a happy man about this. Tell me why.
Well,
you know, David's going to be serious when he takes a deep breath.
Yeah, I just, like so many other Cowboys fans, it's a piss poor decision, and that's why this organization continues to accept mediocrity in the postseason. In the ultimate what have you done for me lately game of life, they continue to look like a piece of crap in the postseason when it matters most. Mike McCarthy, greatest regular season coach in NFL history. He's won 36 games during his 3-year tenure with the Cowboys, and he's won a whopping 1 playoff game. He mismanages the clock. He gets out-coached. He makes bad decisions. He's a bad gambler. He's not a good gambler. He's a schmuck when the postseason comes, and he continues to show why he needs to not be there. And in a year where there are so many good coaching free agencies, the Belichicks, the Vrabels, even maybe you want to sit there and go the Michigan route. You know what I mean? And bring in Harbaugh. But I mean, the point I'm trying to make here is that he is not the guy. I am not going into next season saying with any confidence that this team is going to win the Super Bowl because, number one, yes, they have a good roster, but they have not made any dynamic moves to show me that they're really serious about taking care of business. They went into this season with Pollard, who was an unproven starting running back. Number two, their defense was fool's gold. Yeah, it was good through about 8 or 9 games. Then it steadily declined the last part of the season. Just look at the statistics. And last but not least, McCarthy and his silly clock management, the way he gives up points, the way he doesn't want to go for 3 with one of the best field goal kickers in the whole league and wants to continuously gamble. And like I said, he doesn't look like a coach that's won a Super Bowl. He doesn't appear that he's a coach that's won a Super Bowl. If I saw this guy, I'd say he's an inexperienced coach. And all I got to say is there's a reason why Dallas is crap, because they continuously make stupid decisions like this. I hate it. It is what it is.
Okay.
Hey, I mean, Brandon, the vent session for Brandon the Iceman Cohen.
It's a bad move, man.
Okay, so the one thing that I'll say here, right? Like what you're saying isn't different from what a lot of other people out there are saying. Especially, I went live on a couple of different platforms following the Dallas Cowboys.
You were great,
game.
by the way. I enjoyed it.
And the one thing that was a consistent was we've got to get rid of McCarthy.
Right.
They've got to get rid of McCarthy.
Everybody on their
blah 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 blah. McCarthy. I even went as far, and again, me being in the emotions I was at the time, I went as far as saying that they need to just blow the whole damn thing up and start from scratch. Right? Like that's the only way they're going to do it, because they're going to be at present the way that they are presently. $21 million over the cap.
Yep, a lot of free agents.
And there's a lot of good free agents that are out there for it. But the one thing that I would say back, and that I would, rebuttal you with, Brandon, would be the fact that this is a team. Whenever you talk about Belichick, whenever you talk about Vrabel, the reason why they got fired is they didn't make it to the playoffs.
Right.
Belichick's had some really bad years with some pretty talented teams that he's had. Yep. Vrabel has had some pretty talented teams as well. Obviously, they don't have the quarterback part's always going to be an issue, right? At least Dallas is getting to the dance. They ain't dancing with anybody. They're standing up against the wall. They're not dancing with anybody, but they're in the dance. There's always an opportunity.
They're one and done every year, just about, except for last year.
But the question to that, Brandon, is Mike McCarthy the one calling the defensive plays?
No,
last
he's
I checked,
not.
it wasn't the offense that was giving up 48 points.
There was definitely some improvement. Obviously, I like the way he and Dak worked well together. But then Dak pulls a Dak in the postseason. So is Dak. As much as I love him, I hate him, because he ultimately, when it counts the most, like McCarthy, can't get it done. And if that doesn't irritate you, I don't know what will, because they lost that game because of the defense, but they also lost it because of Prescott. Without a doubt, if he doesn't throw those 2 picks, it could be a different game.
I mean, one of those picks is kind of.
Hey, man, the second one was a pick 6, man. Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah. And, of course, you don't know how to stop Aaron Jones. You got your linebackers who can't cover the middle of the friggin' field to save their lives. I mean, how the hell does that defense get played that bad by a Packers fan, a team that barely made the playoffs, man?
Well, okay. I mean, we can say the Packers barely made the playoffs, but that's still a team that was red hot.
It's a good team, yes. I mean, and that's a dangerous team to play when January comes, is a team like that. Because that's the team you're afraid of the most. First ever 7 seed to win in the playoffs, because obviously it's a new shtick to have a 7 seed. So that's a 2-year-old statistic. But
I was about to say that's the most misleading statistic in the history of statistics. Come on.
Go ahead, Daver.
There's one other thing that I wanted to point out.
Yes.
And that is part of the success of Bill Belichick was having Tom Brady.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Tom had the unique talent of knowing how to win a game in the second half of the game. And most of the losses that I've seen was where Dallas couldn't get up on the board the first half of the game, and the trend continued. The second point I wanted to make is the success of the Cowboys is not just on the quality of the coach, but it's knowing how to tone down the we're winning my way or the highway mentality. The real talent is going to be whomever the coach is. He's got to work with Jerry Jones.
And that's the problem. And that, again, as much as I'd like to say that I feel that, Belichick would have been a good fit, I don't think he's going to put up with Jones. He wants too much control. You can't get anybody that's going to want that much control because it's not going to work. And yes, I mean, as much as I love Jerry Jones and what he did for us 30 years ago in the 90s, I'm sick and tired of the nonsense of not pulling the trigger. I mean, how long did he keep Jason Garrett until finally they got rid of him and he wasn't doing anything? How long is he keeping McCarthy after mediocrity every single year in the playoffs? How many teams that aren't up to the Cowboys status have made the NFC or AFC championship game in the last decade, let's call it, not even 20 or 30 years? The fact that they cannot get it done when it matters the most is the number one reason why you wanted to move on with McCarthy. And that's my take on it.
So I get where you're coming from on that, right? And I will always... And it feels weird that I'm on this side of the fence because I feel like, again, the most popular thing for a lot of Cowboys fans is Jerry Jones, the GM, would have been fired X amount of years ago for the lack.
Are you kidding me?
But my question to you comes to this then.
It's true.
Whose drafts would you rather have had? Would you have rather had what Belichick did with the Patriots, or would you have rather had what Dallas has done with Jerry Jones? And the simple fact of the matter is Jerry Jones has drafted a lot of really damn good players. He's been a phenomenal GM.
He also wanted Manziel. I mean, he's also had some, but yes, I mean, look, and that's Jerry Jones and some of the people around. It's not just his son too. It's other people. It's not just Jerry, because Jerry, if it were all up to him, God knows who we would end up with this at this point.
But that's where I'm going at, right? Like you talk about someone that would want the control. That Jerry's not going to give up the control. Belichick hasn't done anything. If you look at the drafts that he's had, like, he's gotten lucky on a lot of guys, but the last decade of drafts the Patriots have had haven't really been these amazing, phenomenal athletes that we keep seeing the Patriots.
It's not just about the drafts. It's about the acquisition of certain players that nobody else wants that ended up flourishing in New England, and the fact that he had to consistently lose players and then bring in players. And yes, it was about having Brady, but it was also about having a good supporting cast that they brought in too.
And 100% of them getting that supporting cast was the fact that Brady was able to put his ego aside and say, okay, pay me what the minimum is for someone that's at my stature. And then whenever Brady said, now it's time for you guys to pay me, they wanted to get rid of Brady. Brady goes and still wins a Super Bowl.
Yeah. I mean, it was, look, what they've done when you look at, how Dallas can't for the life of them even get to a conference championship game has been unbelievable. That's why they're the greatest franchise in NFL history to date. And it's hard to say that, but it's true, man. The numbers speak for themselves. I mean, I just remember Amendola. Remember him? The Cowboys got rid of him. He ends up going to New England. And didn't he win a ring with New England? I mean, I'd have to look at, that, but I could have sworn he did pretty well with New England overall. Yeah. But there's been a lot of other players, again, that have been rejected by other rosters that you take to New England and they end up becoming good players. Don't tell me that's just a player. That's coaching. That's development. That's a good staff. So Belichick, to me, he's the GOAT, of coaches.
We have the establishment of whenever Tom Brady was gone, that team went to the toilet.
They did.
With the same staff, with the same coaching.
I don't disagree there. They did definitely become an irrelevant franchise. Even, Mac Jones didn't pan out, and certainly the other players they've brought in haven't panned out.
Well, and that's the thing, too. I don't think it's a Mac Jones problem. I think that's a Bill Belichick problem. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, people went to play with Tom Brady because they admired his leadership and the opportunity to play with the GOATs.
You want to win a ring? They knew how many rings. Every year they were in the they're it's like they're the Kansas City of Kansas City is the New England of past. Obviously, every year you're in the championship game. Every year you're competing to win a Super Bowl. That's what New England was just a few years back. I mean, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, whatever it was. You know what I mean?
So the debate's going to continue on throughout the remainder of the season. What's going to happen with the Dallas Cowboys? I have a sickening feeling that they're going to win 12 games again, and they get bounced out of the first round of the playoffs, because why the hell wouldn't they? They're the Dallas Cowboys, and they're going to break our hearts no matter what, right? So we'll I guess revisit this as it goes forward. Also, I don't think we're out of the woods just yet with Mike McCarthy. I think that he's going to have one of the shortest leashes in the NFL. I've said this, going back to earlier this season. If they do get rid of Mike McCarthy, they're not going to go out and get another coach. They're just going to promote Dan Campbell, Dan Quinn. They're going to promote him up into being the head coach, and we'll see what that's like. But this is going to be the thing that I would always remember with Dan Quinn. He choked away a 28-3 lead against Tom Brady and then Patriots, right? Yeah. We've seen his defenses get gashed pretty damn badly. And this is
That's a good
actually pretty
point,
cool,
sir.
something that we're going to have brought over to the table right now.
What is this? A glass
I
of water?
am super excited about this.
This
I've got a little
gift.
gift for
Oh,
you,
yeah.
Dave, for Brandon as
Oh,
well.
my
Just a
God.
little something to show you guys.
Oh,
You know, I
like
got
gifts.
nothing but
We
a little
love
bit
you.
of
We
love
love
for
you
you.
so much.
Right, so I'm gonna get this one. This one will be mine since I'm using it right now. It's gonna be a little coffee mug, right?
I like that.
I don't know if you drink coffee, Dave.
Well, do you drink coffee, Dave?
No more than 2 cups a day.
Well,
One-
that's good. At least you drink just 2 cups a day. You know,
yeah. Well,
Okay.
you need
So
some help
we'll
with that?
see how this is supposed to go. So it's supposed to be hot water, and then what's going to happen is it should change. The water's a little warm. I don't know if it's going to be hot enough for us to get it to change, but it's supposed to change colors. And this is very anticlimactic because I don't see it changing at all.
It seems like it's lukewarm. Is it actually warm?
It's not very warm.
Does it?
at all.
Imagine it needs to be pretty warm, right,
Yeah.
to work? Is this the
Yeah.
shtick here?
Yeah, and that's what it has to be like hot water. It's
Can
got
I
to be like
stick my
coffee.
finger in it and see how-
It feels like you could drink
No,
it.
it's not even.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
like.
so there we go. But that was
There you go,
disappointing.
David. There's a cup of water for you in case you get thirsty.
Yeah, we'll worry about that a little bit later. But we'll try to get something. I was gonna say, is that soda? Oh.
Waka waka waka.
How is there
Where's
no
the
hot
tomatoes?
water?
Where's the tomatoes coming at us? You know?
Okay, so what it's going to do, I'll share the video up a little bit later because I had my friend Maribel Duenas from Maribel's Creations make this for us here. What's going to happen is it'll change into the Fire and Ice logo.
Oh, that's
whenever
freaking awesome.
we
I love it.
get some coffee or some tea in there. I'm always more about tea. I like tea more than I like
That's
coffee.
cool.
So we'll do that as
So
we
you
have.
put some hot water and it changes?
Yeah, and it changes colors.
That's pretty cool.
Yes.
I drink my coffee in the morning. I like that.
There you go. So you got
That's
something perfect.
phenomenal.
What better way to explain this show than that cup right there?
Phenomenal. I love it, dude. I absolutely love it. That is so awesome, man.
The cup that's supposed
Creative.
to change colors and doesn't at all.
Well, you know, I mean,
I know it does because she showed me the video. I know it does because she showed me the video.
Damn
Okay.
it, we just need to use some really hot water. Daver, go heat some water up.
Where's the
I'm
microwave?
already in hot water. Done.
Once again, Fire and Ice over here at Union Drafthouse 730 Sunland Park Drive in the parking lot of the Shops of Solana. The Shops of Solana today have the farmers market going out there, so I might go swing by that. I always love going to the little farmers markets, Brandon. Over here at Union Drafthouse, though, it is Cider-Day. That means $4 ciders, $4 seltzers in the can, and then, of course, the $4 Ornitos as well. Then we've got the bottomless wings that we've taken advantage of over the last couple of weeks. $15 gets you your first round, and then all rounds are free after that.
Love it.
You cannot beat a deal like that.
Nope.
I think by the end of this week, actually, I might have gone through all the flavors that they have on the menu, and I want to say it's about 25 different flavors.
How's the hottest? Is it really hot?
We did try, Andrew and I tried a couple of weeks ago, the ghost pepper one that they have. I don't know the name of it off the top of my head. I don't have a menu here in front of me to check it out. But that ghost pepper one, whenever I tell you this, it's not the fact that it just like burns your mouth up.
Uh-huh.
There's actual flavor there
okay,
as well.
okay.
So the sauce is made fantastically. Everything about it is mixed well. And then, of course, my favorite thing, it's got that burn to it. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I love about it. The $15 or $16 wings, because I'm not going to lie and say it's $15. It's $15.99. $16 wings. And then bottomless after that. Nice. You cannot beat a deal like that. And these wings have been spectacular. Of course, they're going to have the NFL games here later on today. The
UFC 297.
Yeah, there we go. UFC 297, which I don't know if you've done any looking in on that. I haven't.
I mean, I've done a little research. I know it's a good card.
I heard one press conference and I was out. I was out.
I know that a lot of people like Strickland in the main event. Strickland is supposed to be the favorite. You know, he's 28-5. Co-main, you have Rachel Pennington and also Mayra Bueno Silva. So that's going to be a good co-main. Also, the prelims should be good. So I think you'll see a lot of people here for those prelims, which actually will get underway at 6 o'clock. And then it's in Canada A. They're in Toronto. What's this all about?
Yeah, I'll send you what I got from the press conference, and we can see if we want to talk about it a little bit later. It's just something I think this card in particular I'm done with because of Strickland.
Yeah,
we can talk a little bit more about that some other time. Continuing what we had to recap last week as well, right? The games. We're talking about the games. We moved on. Congratulations to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Congratulations to Green Bay.
Yep.
And for those of you that actually want to bet on this, I don't think Green Bay is a lock to lose that game.
No, they're not.
Green Bay is a very damn good team.
These are the type of team that scares you.
Yeah.
You don't want to play in January. And Aaron Jones, let me continue to mention that the El Paso native it was the leading rusher like 3 of the last 4 weeks and went nuts last week. And yes, he historically struggles against San Francisco, but this is a different Packers team. Jordan Love is on fire. Okay, their defense has been playing better. San Francisco, didn't they lose like 2 of their last maybe 4 or 5 games, if I'm not mistaken? They lost to Baltimore and they lost to Arizona, right? So, yes,
They lost to the Rams.
Was it the Rams?
Yes.
Okay, that's the last game of the season, right?
Yeah.
And they lost to Baltimore. So they lost 2 of their last 4, I think. But, long story short is that I don't think this team is as invincible as they may have looked, 6 or 7 weeks ago.
And that's my biggest concern. If I'm a 49ers fan, my biggest concern is the fact that they seemingly can't stop a team that runs.
True.
And Green Bay's got some running backs.
They got some running backs.
They're getting A.J. Dillon back as well. And again, I mentioned it last week. Dude's an absolute unit. That is not someone you want to try to tackle.
Yep.
And they've got some great edge rushers. Does San Francisco? But the interior part of that defense, minus Fred Warner, that's the biggest weakness for them. And as we saw last week, Green Bay loves to just run it straight down your damn throat.
Yes,
and Aaron Jones has got the speed, the breakaway speed to be able to break, to break some tackles and get down the field, get into the end zone. What I love about Green Bay, and I wish that every team could build a model like what Green Bay has done, it's basically you have Hall of Fame quarterback. Draft his replacement in the first round. So it pisses off Hall of Fame quarterback, and he plays really good for the next couple of years.
Right.
He becomes trade bait, trade Hall of Fame quarterback for a haul, and then new quarterback steps in and becomes Hall of Fame quarterback. And we just repeat the cycle over and over and over.
At some point, you have to say that they're one of the most clever organizations in the NFL. I mean, in the history of the game. I mean, not only do you rarely see that incredible of a quarterback to take over for a Hall of Fame quarterback, but this is the 3rd time in a row. We're talking 20 plus years, another generation that granted it's still early in Love's career, but the point is he seems like he could be the real McCoy along with the history and string of other great quarterbacks they've had. So that to me is just a well-run, intelligent organization.
Well, and the thing to me is it's these receivers and the core of this team. This is the 2nd youngest team to go this far in the NFL playoffs in the history of the NFL.
Yep.
Which says a lot about what this team is. That's a lot of kids on rookie and 2nd-year deals, which just means they're going to get better. They're going to get more valuable.
No doubt.
Oh, and by the way, Green Bay is going to have a shit ton of cap space to be able to sign at least the majority of those players, and you get to use these next couple of years as motivators because they're all going to want to get their payday.
Sure.
So they're going to be playing at the top of the highest level they can possibly get to, and it just seems like Green Bay is poised in a position right now to – I've been saying that's Detroit's division. I don't think I can say that anymore with what I've been seeing from Green Bay. And then talking about Jordan Love, his last 9 games, 22 touchdowns and 1 interception.
Wow.
And the guy is just he's phenomenal.
He is.
Right? Like the early part of the season there were struggles.
Yeah, well that happens.
Which you should expect.
But I mean the way he was so accurate, he was throwing off his back foot a lot last week, and he was throwing dimes to those receivers. I mean, that was just some of the most accurate and just incredible throws that I've ever seen. I mean, they were really, really like right on target, like no doubts.
Well, and then that's the biggest issue too, right? Whenever we talk about Dallas Cowboys, this is a team that's always man-to-man defense. Why on God's green earth did you decide last week in the first week of the playoffs to go zone when no one knows how to play a damn zone?
No.
There's so many questions with this team.
Yeah,
and that's why like I go back to my original point that I wanted to make last week of just blow this damn team up. The reason why San Francisco got so damn good is because they had those really early, those early first-round draft picks, right? The same thing with Philadelphia. Philadelphia knew when to blow it up and knew how to draft really well.
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys are always consistently drafting anywhere between 15 to 25, where you're not getting the game-changing kind of guy. You're just getting a guy.
Yeah.
Right? Why not get that guy that can change the entire trajectory of your damn franchise? And instead, now you're handcuffed with the fact that you've got a quarterback that's going to cost you $52 million against the cap next year. And if you got rid of him, would cost you $89 million against the cap next year. So the thing to me is Dallas is handcuffed so badly right now that it's going to be hard for them to be able to do anything.
Yeah, they're in a difficult situation. I mean, like I said, they have yes.
But then I look at Tampa Bay, that's $81 million over the cap because of all the dead cap space that they got to Tom Brady and a bunch of other players that retired. They get Baker Mayfield for $2 million this year.
Clever.
They get all the cap relief coming up next year, and they've got a very bright future going ahead for
They
them
really
too.
do. I mean, they really do. Again, it's not about the acquisitions that you're able to make or the lack thereof in the draft. It's also about how you utilize your cap space and how clever you are about taking advantage of the resources that you already have. And again, the Cowboys, they were banking on Pollard, right? And that epically failed. They let Zeke go. They could have signed him for pennies on the dollar. That epically failed. Okay. Defensively, they shit the bed. They were coming off of a great year. They looked like they were going to continue. They beat the crappy teams. They beat the piss, out of the Jets, out of the Giants, and everyone's like, "Wow, this defense could be historically good." I'm one of the people that said that too. Fooled you again, didn't they? I mean, they really did fool us again. Now losing Diggs didn't help, granted, but again. In the end,
yeah, but I mean, even though Diggs went down, Deron Bland had a hell of a season.
He was getting like 7 interceptions.
Yeah,
but their defensive line couldn't get to the quarterback. Like it wasn't good enough. It wasn't good enough. It wasn't enough pressure.
Well, no, they were second in the league in pressuring the quarterback.
Towards the end, though,
they
let Love have a lot of time.
And then they were, I want to say, 4th in the league in overall sacks. But the biggest issue to me with that is they don't ever get flags. That's the biggest thing. You're telling me that Michael Parsons doesn't ever get held.
No.
You ain't watching the damn game.
All right.
You know what I mean?
He's held all the time, right?
And that was the thing is it went, 9, almost 10 games between hold calls on what has to be the defensive player or one of the defensive players of the year.
The defensive player.
So Brandon also sent me a couple of texts, and an article, Dave. And this article was talking about how there's going to be more snow this week as Kansas City travels up to Buffalo. It's Buffalo. Of course, there's going to be snow. And they are going to have this epic matchup on Sunday night. I think it's the 4th time now that they're going to be facing each other in the playoffs. And the text message that he sent before that was how 20 people were hospitalized for having, whatever symptoms they got from being in the cold in Kansas City last week.
Yep.
As we remember, Brandon has his crusade that he's going to start now of every football game needs to be played in perfect conditions. Brandon, there was a reason why you sent me all that stuff. I'm going to cede the floor to you, sir.
Well, I mean, look, I just feel that, again, it's about the ratings. It's not about the safety of the fans. Hence the reason why that game was played with 30 below zero wind chill, which is dangerous. If anybody, which I know you have, I know I have, has been in that type of weather, it's absolutely treacherous. It's detrimental to your health. You're a schmuck if you sit out there for 4 hours. You're unfortunately, you're playing with fire. You really are. I mean, it's not good to be in that type of weather. So they didn't, flex it or anything because it's all about ratings, and you got to have the Saturday night game as opposed to the Saturday afternoon game, and everybody wants to see, Taylor Swift cheer when Kelsey makes, scores or catches a 5-yard out pass. But the point is that they didn't do anything to move it. It was a few degrees warmer, and the same thing with this Buffalo game. It's, they're getting like 3 feet of snow or something like that. Everybody's going to dig out the stadium again, but yet the Bills have the chutzpah to be building like a $1 billion stadium with, guess what, an open roof. Now, granted, it's like Miami Gardens or whatever it's called, Hard Rock Stadium, where 70% of the fans are covered, which is good. It's better than the way it is right now. But long story short, there's still that open roof. I mean, I'm just saying that, it is an outdoor game. I mean, the teams that play up north, the teams that play on the East Coast, you get used to the fans freezing their asses off. It is what it is, okay? I'll never go to a game like that again. I'm not that dumb, okay? I just have to say it. But I'm saying that, it's dangerous to the fans, and that's all. And they're happy to be at home. Finally, they're at home, playing in the postseason against Kansas City. But
can you find out for me, please?
Yes. What do you need?
How many people fit in Gayha Stadium at Arrowhead?
Okay.
Just so I can figure that out, right? And then we're going to do. I'm going to
say about 80,000 Arrowhead Stadium capacity. Okay, let's see here. 76.4. So
76,416.
Right.
Which means that 75,996.
We're fine.
We're okay.
Yes. They were.
So these and I wanted to see. I wanted to find more articles. I was actually talking to my guy Alex Gold, who hosts a radio show over in Kansas City. He might be joining us next week to kind of talk about these things. I wanted him to kind of clarify what was going on there because I feel like these idiots were the ones that were out there without a shirt. And if you're going to be in -3 or -30 degree temperatures without a shirt, you kind of get what's coming to you, and you deserve what happens to you. If you get hypothermia because you want to be an asshole standing outside and cheering on your team, go Chiefs, go, because you want to look tough
the people
without
got
a shirt.
hypothermia without the shirt, so I think they were like regular fans. I don't think they were being assholes, you know. I mean,
Well, no, because if you're covered
but I'm
up,
sure some of these dumbasses had their shirts off too. You know how these people are; they're morons.
If you're covered up the proper way, you're not going to get
Not
hypothermia.
necessarily. I mean, it's dangerous to be in that. Like they say, don't be out in that kind of. You live in Alaska, for crying out loud. I live in Chicago. He's from Pennsylvania.
75,996 people were fine. The people on the field weren't complaining about it, and they were running into each other. The fact that Patrick Mahomes' helmet broke.
You know that helmet's selling for like $100,000 or something.
Jesus,
man?
it should be.
That's cool, man.
The fact that it didn't. I think the best part about
Have
it
you
too.
ever seen that happen? I don't think we've ever seen that in the history of the game.
But I think the best part about it is he tries to put on the replacement helmet and it's frozen and it can't go over his.
Yeah. Yes. I could attest to that. I mean, well, not wearing a helmet, but being at the Bears-Packers game in 2008 when the ketchup and mustard packets were frozen for the hot dog I bought, and the Sprite was frozen by half. Of course, beer is going to freeze. I mean, but I don't know. I mean, I'm just one of these people that I like the idea of the retractable, because here's the thing: if you live in a cold weather environment, it's great. I'd say keep the thing open all year round if you want, Bills weather or Bears weather. But then when you have a problem like that on Saturday night, or there's going to be 3 feet of snow in your stadium, then you can at least keep the freaking roof closed. I'm just saying. And by the way, you can lure a Super Bowl. I mean, hey, let's think from an economic standpoint for a minute, right?
Okay, yeah.
I'm just saying. Just saying.
You always know the weight of my heart is to talk about the business impact that it
come
can
on
have.
now.
So yeah, I agree with
I'm
that.
just saying. Everybody going forward should not be a moron and build an open air stadium, because why not? If there's a Super Bowl in Detroit, there could be a Super Bowl in Buffalo. They got Niagara Falls. They got Canada right there. Build a friggin' dome and open the dome and close the dome. And if you want to play in 20 below weather and freeze your tokuses off, then keep the damn thing open. But that's up to you. At least you have the luxury of keeping it closed if you want.
One of my favorite things is to watch Miami Dolphin games in September.
Oh my God!
The reason
why they're dying, aren't they?
The reason why is because the Dolphins strategically made their stadium this way to where their home team is in the shade. And the away team is baking. Yeah. And there is anywhere between a 45 to 50 degree temperature difference between the sidelines.
True story. I went to a Marlins game when the stadium first opened. Okay, beautiful stadium, retractable dome. And I talked to the guy who was running the concession stand. I said, this is a beautiful stadium. It was like, it was July, so it was like 110 in the shade over there, right, with the humidity. And I said, you got nice open, a dome, retractable dome. I said, how many games a year do you guys have it open? He said, about 3. He's like, it's too freaking hot here to ever have the dome open. I mean, that's so great though, because again, it's so humid there,
So let's talk about our home team here, the El Paso Chihuahuas. Should they be playing in a dome?
No, because again, it's very hot here in the summer. But the fact that we start in April and then we end in October, April's fine, May's fine. September, October, great. September's a little warm, but as in the evenings in the summer, sure, we have threats of rain or whatever, but it does cool down in the evening here in the desert to some extent because we are in dry heat as opposed to the humidity. But that's why the Rangers built the dome, because it's open, but it's closed most of the time because of the humidity in Arlington.
I also say this when talking about the Chihuahuas and all that too. There's one thing that they don't do that they're not allowed to do because of the way that the temperature is here, where they can't have an afternoon game. It all has to be evening.
That's why they do the 11 a.m.s, right? Because they also do the day games.
But have you been there for them 11 a.m. games?
No. How is it? Hotter than hell?
They get hot.
Yeah. But they had one in August this year, if I'm not mistaken, didn't they?
Yeah. And guess who was there?
You.
And it was hell.
It was brutal.
Yeah. I love going to as many of the Chihuahuas games as I can. I will not go anymore to those afternoon games because I've been a couple of times to those. Whenever we were at KLAQ, they would get some of those tickets as well, and especially at noon here in El Paso, there is no shade.
Yeah, it's not enjoyable. And I'm like a lobster. I mean, I'm going to get red. I don't tan, I burn. So, I mean, yes, that's not my cup of tea. I need to go in the evening. That's why I'm all about the evening games and the night games, which are nice. I mean, I was there in July, and it was 110 outside, and by the time 8, 9 o'clock came, it became all right. I mean, it was still pretty friggin' hot, but at least you're in the shade.
So what would be the sport that's acceptable to be played outside during the wintertime? Because I'm going to say hockey.
Depends on where you're at. I mean,
Yeah, Phoenix can't have that.
I mean, you're playing hockey in Chicago in the winter. You don't want to play outdoors, that's for sure. I mean,
but that's one of the greatest
soccer. I don't know. I mean,
but that's one of the greatest shticks, as you would say, that hockey has. There's that outdoor game.
Oh, the Winter Classic.
Yeah,
that shtick's a good one, and they usually in a cold weather city. But this year, I think they were in Seattle, which is a little chilly, but it's not Boston or Philly or New York or Chi. So I mean that is a cool shtick that they created. I want to say it's been 15, 20 years at this point, right?
Yeah.
It's been a long time for that Winter Classic game.
This most recent one was between the Seattle Kraken and the Vegas Golden Knights, because nothing says classic hockey quite like the Seattle Kraken and the Vegas Golden Knights.
Yeah. I think the first ever one was in Buffalo, if memory serves. I remember years ago.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, it's too cold for Brandon. We're talking about Buffalo. Can't have anything outside in Buffalo.
It's funny. I think it was in Buffalo.
Every road in Buffalo needs to be a tunnel, according to this guy.
Hey, dude, it snows a lot over there. I love Buffalo. I've been there a few times. Great town. But notice I've been there in the summer. I never go in the winter. Even the locals say, stay the hell out of here in the winter. They've told me, if you don't line 4 or 5 feet of snow, you're in good shape. I said, shit, are you kidding me? I'm going to deal with an inch of snow, much less 3, 4 feet.
I think that's what it is, Dave, that Brandon has lived in El Paso way too long and got acclimated to the fact that we have almost perfect weather. It gets hot, but it's almost perfect weather all year round. And now whenever it gets anywhere near 50, Brandon's wearing a hoodie and a bunch of sweatpants and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, 70 in January ain't bad. It was like 70 the other day. I mean, I love this town for the weather, obviously, among other things. But, we're blessed because most of the country, when they're freezing their butts off and dealing with snow, you can't shovel sunshine ultimately. You know what I mean? So that's why I like El Paso.
I'm sure the Locomotive appreciates being able to play in a nice area. They share the same stadium as the Chihuahuas.
Yeah. Which they need their own stadium, though. I still think they need their own
I
stadium.
agree 100%.
Oh, I hear you.
I don't like that.
But
I don't like
we'll talk till we're blue in the face with this city and all the people
happen.
that don't want to build a stadium.
Yeah, well,
to me, I thought the best place for them to build a stadium would have been like right outside of Socorro, right there, where like the Loop and I-10
there's
is.
enough room out there.
Yeah, you build a nice big stadium out there. Everyone's got the parking stuff
but no, it's a terrible idea, right? It's terrible to do that for our city.
It's because everyone in El Paso complains about parking for whatever reason.
Parking. Are you kidding? Parking's easy in this town, and it's usually free.
Well, and that's my favorite thing, too. Everyone talks about the parking, especially downtown. And
Dude,
there's not enough parking downtown.
Are you kidding
What
me?
downtown do you know that has a shit ton of parking?
Well, not only that, but you're going to bitch to pay $10 for parking. You go to any other game in the country, you're paying $50, $60 for parking, man.
Yeah, whenever we went to that Rangers game.
Yeah, $40 for parking, man. I mean,
it wasn't even close.
You parked where and you go to Yankee Stadium in Chicago, go see a White Sox game. You look at it, $40+, dude. It's insane. It really somebody told me, my friend went to the Cowboys game, the playoff game. He said he got $90 to park. $90 to park, dude.
See, that right there is not knowing the right place. There's an Irish restaurant that we park at that has a shuttle that takes us to right outside the stadium.
That's a good shtick.
That's a smart thing to do. And it's
drink,
like maybe
right?
2 or 3 blocks away.
Same thing in Milwaukee. You park there, you get a drink at the pub, they give you a band, and they take you to the stadium and back for the Brewers games.
Okay.
That's a good stick. I like that.
All right.
Aren't you clever?
Once again, Fire and Ice out here at Union Drafthouse Sunland Park, 730 Sunland Park Drive in the parking lot of the shops at Solana, where they have their farmers market happening today as well. Today is Cider-Day. We got the $4 ciders. We got the $4 seltzers. We got $4 Ornitos. We also have the endless wings as well. $15.99 get you your first round, and all the rounds after that are free. Big fat guys get happy about stuff like that. I'm extremely happy about it. Brandon, what was your favorite flavor that you tried last week?
Oh, was that gold? What was it called? Gold member or something? Gold.
Yes.
And then the one, actually, I liked the one that had a little heat to it. So it was like the spicy gold.
It was the Sriracha
Gold member was really good.
I love gold.
How was it? Let me ask you, how was the, didn't you try the lemon pepper when I left, or the garlic parm or something? Was it good?
I tried the lemon pepper. I'm not normally one that likes lemon pepper, but the lemon pepper wings were actually really good.
You got to try that one.
Good.
And then you got another one, the one that the wife got.
The Korean barbecue.
That was my favorite.
But there was another one you got that was actually pretty good. Was it like the something?
I got the honey hot.
Honey hot. That was tasty. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they have good wings here. I like to order them extra crispy.
Extra crispy wings for Brandon the Iceman Cone. And then he complains about how long it takes for them to come out.
Oh, hush.
I'm sorry, Brandon. I had to. I apologize. Which ones are these? These are lemon pepper wings. These are how big they are. Holy hell.
Those are huge.
These are some big wings.
Those are the biggest wings I've ever seen. Dave goes for one. Dave tries to grab the wing.
There you go, Dave.
We love you, Daver. These are huge. I had to grab one.
Dave was entranced by that.
He's like, "Wait, are you showing it for the show or for me?" And he eats them all. I love our buddy Daver. He's my pal. Who doesn't love Daver, right?
Absolutely love it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about some of the games that we saw over the weekend. Of course, we talked about Kansas City and Buffalo in their respective stadiums. Anything surprising out of those games? Were you surprised with the fact that Kansas City's defense was able to hold Tyreek Hill and that high-powered Miami Dolphins offense to literally 7 points, so the lowest amount of points scored in the postseason this year so far? Miami and that offense not being able to get any traction at all.
No, because I don't think that Miami played well down the stretch for the most part, number one. Number two, the Chiefs already proved across the pond. I think, didn't they play like in Germany or something, that they could easily defeat the Chiefs, even with a red-hot Tyreek Hill who had damn near 2,000 yards through the air this year. And lastly, they were playing in their element. And Miami's not used to playing in that element, and Kansas City is. And in the end, it was a certain advantage for them. So the Chiefs did what they did, and that's winning the postseason. So there was no surprise at all for me there.
Whenever we look at Buffalo defeating the Pittsburgh Steelers, that's another game that was kind of deceptive. It wound up being only a touchdown, but it was still such a one-sided game here. Anything that stood out to you in that game? Because to me, it was the inaccuracy of Josh Allen.
Yeah, but he did it on the ground. What do you have, like a 60-yard TD run or whatever? So he's just unbelievable. I mean,
can you imagine trying to tackle that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is he's so dangerous. He's so dangerous on the ground. I mean, other than Jackson, he's the best mobile quarterback in the league nowadays. And ultimately, I mean, I just feel that he just gets it done in the most important times. And they've been so hot and playing so well, and their defense stepped up, ended up with 2-3 turnovers. So, I mean, I have to say that I was very impressed because they did beat a good Steelers team. I mean, the Steelers were a decent team this year, and they kept winning games that maybe they shouldn't have, but they did win. The bottom line's win. So I think it's going to be a great matchup against Kansas City tomorrow night. I'm excited about that one. I really am.
Detroit pulling out the win against the Rams was the best game of the weekend. Detroit winning that game 24-23. Matt Stafford looked like he was concussed in that game, but you knew there was no way in hell he wasn't going to finish that game. Yeah,
I mean, look, the Rams put up a valiant effort. Excuse me. Puka is unbelievable. I mean, what a great addition to complement Kupp and the Williams as their running back, and they have a lot to look forward to for the future. That was a game that was winnable for them, but I'm really happy for the Lions. I mean, I'm not only because my late great dad was from Detroit, he was a Lions fan, but it's just nice to see a franchise that's been so bad for so long finally win a playoff game and then host another playoff game because Dallas goofed. But long story short, they've got a lot, man. I'm not going to at all be surprised if they make an NFC title game run, I should say, and maybe even represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. That's the type of team where they're so well coached. Campbell's such a great coach. He's coach of the year. He's coach of the year, arguably. I mean, the way he's, you know what I mean? And ultimately, I'm just extremely excited. They've got so many weapons, and they dodged a bullet with that kid, their tight end, who's been unbelievable. He got hurt the last week of the season. But
Sam
Laporta. But, I mean, man, they've just got a little bit of everywhere, and their defense has been solid as well. So very impressed with that victory over a tough Rams team.
Another team that pulled out a win that you and I kind of thought wasn't going to happen. The Houston Texans running shop over the Cleveland Browns. Joe Flacco, but Cleveland. Yeah. And that game turned ugly real quick.
It did. And you know what? A credit to Houston, a credit to C.J. Stroud. He's the real McCoy. I mean, Carolina is kicking themselves in the butt for not drafting him number one overall. He is so good. He is going to be an amazing quarterback right now. But, man, Singletary has flourished on the ground for them, leaving Buffalo to a greener pasture. Their defense stepped up and made Cleveland look like crap. I mean, I'll tell you what, I had the Browns making like a potential Super Bowl run, and they get beat in the first round at Houston. I don't think a lot of people saw that coming, but, the Texans, that's going to be a good game today against Baltimore at 2:15. I'm excited about that one. They could give the Ravens, who have had playoff disappointments with Jackson at their QB, they could give them a run for their money today.
All right, Brandon, so you already kind of previewed it just a little bit there on what we're going to get into right now. which is going to be our picks of the week. The NFL week is coming up now. All right, Brandon. So the first game that we will talk about right now will be between the Houston Texans going on the road, a 9.5-point underdog, to the Baltimore Ravens. Baltimore is just red hot right now. We saw the way that they handled San Francisco. That seems like they have no weaknesses on that team. What are the legitimate chances that maybe C.J. Stroud and them boys shock the world again?
Look, you're in the game, and you made it this far, so there's certainly a chance. I'm saying there's a chance, but I do not believe it's going to happen today. I just think Baltimore's way too good. I think they're too good at home. I think Jackson is the MVP this year. He'll be a two-time MVP. What a great young career for that kid. I'm all over Baltimore. They're clearly, to me, possibly the best team in the NFL. And I think, it could be a close game. I don't know if I'd say a 9.5 point. That's a big spread. I could see it being a 5 or 6 point game, but I like Baltimore.
Baltimore was one of the best defenses in the NFL, the number one defense as far as points per games go. Not Cleveland, but Houston has done a phenomenal job offensively. They've got a ton of weapons there, but I just think that Baltimore's got a little too much for them to handle. I love the story of Houston. I would love nothing more than to see the Houston Texans make it to an AFC championship, maybe even represent the AFC in a Super Bowl, but I just feel like this is Baltimore's year. I feel like they've got a whole lot to prove. Lamar Jackson, to me, you got to have a lot of pressure on him this year to get them to win the Super Bowl.
A little bit, yeah, because he's always failed in the past. So, but this has been a great year for him. This is a different type of year for him. I really feel he could do it this year. I mean, he's become a better passer too.
We both spoke about the fact that we would not be surprised if Green Bay were to beat San Francisco. Green Bay, a 10-point underdog to San Francisco. I don't know if I necessarily believe that they're 10-point underdog. I think they'll cover that spread pretty easily. But there's also a part of me that says I'm not picking against San Francisco. Yeah. That offense is overwhelming. Yeah. That defense is overwhelming. Yeah. But if there's a team that can control it, because I think that's what it comes down to is ball control, It's going to be the Green Bay Packers.
It's going to be a close game. It could be a 3-point game. Again, but I think that San Francisco shuts Green Bay down. They do what Dallas wasn't able to. They slow down Aaron Jones. He's not been good against them in the past.
Well, part of that's because Aaron Rodgers is overrated.
True. Well, yeah, I mean, maybe. He gets just one. But Purdy gets it done. The kid gets it done and takes care of business, and they win.
There's a part of me that really wants the chaos theory of Jordan Love getting the Packers over the 49ers because Aaron Rodgers was never able to do it.
Yeah.
I want that so badly now. I didn't even think about that just right now. Oh, but you mentioned it. San Francisco just looks like, once again, they're a team that's just overwhelming. Towards the end of the season, everyone thought it was just a matter of time before we get Baltimore and San Francisco colliding in the Super Bowl against each other. And then, because they're head and shoulders above everyone else as far as what talent is that you see. Another game in the NFC, a game that I think nobody could have circled as a potential divisional round playoff game. The Detroit Lions hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Detroit, a 6-point favorite at home. Who do you got in this game, Brandon?
Detroit City rocks, baby. I'm all about the Lions. I'm on the Lions bandwagon. I think they've done extremely well this year. They've won some big games. I think that, certainly you got to give a lot of credit to Baker Mayfield and the Bucs. But in the end, I feel that Tampa Bay, they're like on a gravy train. It's like, hey, man, we're just going to keep going and riding this momentum, and nobody expects us to be here. But to me, Detroit's the team, man. I mean, they're that true dark horse. They're that number one dark horse on the NFC. I got the Lions winning at home.
Detroit has been good all year long. Detroit has so much more that they're playing for. They look like they have no pressure on them whatsoever because they're not even supposed to be here. Right. No matter what the expectations are, they could win a Super Bowl and then nobody would ever expect anything else out of them for the remainder of football in Detroit. I'm going with the Lions as well. I just love the story of what's going on here. Them showing a lot of the fans, that fan that bought his first season tickets in 1957 when they won a championship and has just been watching nothing.
And who doesn't love seeing Eminem at the game?
No, I mean, that's also one of the things, too. For every Taylor Swift, there's the addition of Eminem.
We got Eminem, man. I love Eminem.
And then finally, what I think is going to be the marquee game of the weekend, the Kansas City Chiefs, a 2.5-point underdog, going into Buffalo to face off against the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, they've been doing an amazing job this year. They've also got a great running game. We mentioned it, a 52-yard touchdown run that Josh Allen had in the last game against Pittsburgh. But it seems to me like you can't ever count out the Kansas City Chiefs.
No, you really can't. I mean, and if Buffalo is ever going to beat Kansas City, it's now. You finally get them in your own building, but then last year they goofed against Cincy in their own building. So there's so much pressure on this team. Buffalo has just been so hot lately, and that's what, to me, is going to potentially be the difference maker, is that little bit of momentum they have. No one expected them to get in, based on how they were doing, right? When they were 7-7, they won the division, and here we are. I got Buffalo taking care of business and moving on to the AFC Championship game in a potential epic showdown at Baltimore.
To be the man, woo!
You got to beat
the man. And until I see that happen, I am going with Patrick Mahomes. I am riding the Kansas City Chiefs. Again,
not a bad pick.
They're like the Terminator.
Yeah,
until they're gone, they're not gone.
Yeah, and even if you have a little speck of metal left, they may end up becoming a new Terminator.
100%. So I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs here. Look, I just think it's a bad matchup. I don't like the way, and it's the same thing I told you last week with Dallas and Green Bay. I thought it was a bad matchup. I didn't predict that it was going to go the way it went. I just thought it was a bad matchup. I think Kansas City here, their receivers going up against those defensive backs that Kansas City has right now, Buffalo receivers going up against Kansas City defensive backs. Those defensive backs are so big. Look what they did to Tyreek Hill, to Jalen Waddle, to that team as well. Now, obviously, they're on the road. I think Patrick Mahomes has that to prove right here. If I say there's a quarterback that has more pressure on him to do anything, it's Josh Allen.
Yeah.
Josh Allen has all the pressure on him because they've never beaten the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. They choked last year at home against the Bengals as well. I've said this all year long. Buffalo is AFC Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, I mean, if they don't get it this year, then, I don't want to disagree with you there, because they'd be a huge disappointment yet again.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it comes down to, right?
You got to eventually be able to beat your nemesis, right? I mean, if not, then what a waste.
100%.
To squander a quarterback like Allen. Come on now, it's better. You're better than that.
Oh, 100%. So we will see what happens here between Buffalo and Kansas City. That'll be the last game of the weekend. Brandon, as always, it's been an absolute pleasure hanging out with you, everybody. We are over here at Union Drafthouse, 730 Sunland Park Drive in the west side of El Paso, in the parking lot of the Shops at Solana. They're having their farmers market today as well. Come on out here to Union Drafthouse. They're going to have the UFC happening today as well. UFC 297. Strickland versus someone, not too sure who it is. Don't even really care about that UFC main event, to be honest with you. And then, of course, they're going to be showing the playoff games as well all weekend long. Come on out here. They got the bottomless wings going on. And then, of course, they got the $4 ciders, the $4 seltzers, and the $4 shots of Ornitos. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the show, and we will see you all next week. Look at that. That was a nice